Can you please tell me about yourself and how you stumble upon entrepreneurship route?
Yeah, so my name is Laurie. I grew up right outside of Fredericton. And oh wow, I can tell you that I was not a born entrepreneur. I grew up in a family of educators. My dad was a teacher and then worked with the Department of Education. My mom was a resource teacher. And so around the dinner table, it was education. And if you follow my my academic career, it's very much education. I would say really started with my master's work, where I did that at University of New Brunswick, and I had the wonderful opportunity to work on a whole literacy program for and with First Nations communities. And I got the chance to visit these communities, and my goal as a research assistant was really just to assess their language, very simple. But then I
Mhm.
had school personnel come up to me, teachers, principals, speech language pathologists, asking me, can you develop a culturally sensitive language assessment? And I was like 23, 24 at the time. I had no idea what that meant. And I was like, well, what is it? And what's your concern? And they said, well, the assessments that we currently have are not validated for our students, our First Nation students. So when we use it on them, they say that they have a language disorder, what we now call developmental language disorder, a DLD. But in fact, it's just because they have different cultural experiences that just aren't reflected in the test. So that got me thinking. I was like, oh, I could see that being a real problem. But that problem kept popping up, community after community after community, from Alberta to Labrador. I said, okay, I think there's something here.
Mhm.
And in conjunction, I was working in the public school system as an educational assistant. And this was in 2016, I believe, when New Brunswick had its first wave of Syrian refugees. And it was kind of the first big wave of immigration in the schools that New Brunswick has seen. And that's when I saw hands-on that the assessments weren't for them as well. The assessments are clear that you need at least like 2 years in full immersion in the language before you can use those assessments. And I saw children that were struggling. Some were high flyers, they learned the language, or some were struggling. I said, well, what are we going to do about these children here? Well, we have to wait and see.
Mhm.
That did not sit well with me. I was like, I'm not going to wait and see for these poor children to fail across the board, then we act. So it's like, okay, First Nations children are being over-identified, then refugee and immigrant children in the public school system are being under-identified. There's a need. So that's when I did my PhD at Concordia University under the supervision of Dr. Diane Pesco. She works in language development assessments, so it was a perfect match. And that is where I developed what is now called a curriculum-based dynamic assessment. And I found that it worked. It was able to identify children who had or who are at risk for developmental language disorder, which and with those who are typically developing, even when the children did not have English as a first language. And after my PhD, I said, well, okay, well, what's next? And it was actually then my dad who said, well, why don't we team up together and create a business to get this assessment to the people who would need it the most? So in the schools or in private practice with speech language pathologists, so that's when we created TRICOAST Education. The
Mhm.
name comes from TRICOAST. Canada has three coasts.
Okay. Yeah.
Canada, we like to be known as inclusive, diverse, and welcoming, and those are values that we very our values are very deep at TriCoast Education, so that's why we came up with the name. And we are fully bilingual, English and French. So everything we do in both languages. And so that's really why we got on board. It was out of a need. I was someone else's need. It wasn't me wanting to be an entrepreneur. It was, I think some people call it an accidental entrepreneur.
Mhm.
So that was me.
No, this, great to hear the story about you, how you stumble upon the entrepreneurship route and how you identified the gap and you worked or acted upon it. That good to hear. And the story behind how you named the TriCost, it was good to know. Thank you so much. And uh, would you like to share how many programs you have used from Mitacs to throughout your journey till now, and what kind of support you have received?
Absolutely. Well, I first want to thank you. You were a big part of my Mitacs journey. I had no idea what Mitacs was after my PhD. I knew that I wanted to continue in research. And so when we stumbled upon Mitacs, we thought, oh, this would be a perfect opportunity to receive some funding for my postdoctoral fellowship. It's like this is research that I'm going to be doing myself anyways. Might as well be affiliated with university, so at Concordia still. So I had that one step into research, one step into practice because of Mitacs. So we have the Accelerate program that I'm under, and that's been absolutely wonderful. Allows myself to get a little bit of financial support. In addition, we also have hired some interns who have worked with us under the BSI program. We've used MBA students from University of New Brunswick, so which is really nice because these guys have their business mindset, and so they've been able to bring that expertise to TRICOAST Education that allows us to frame the business how we want to go about, and from dealing with our social media to operations. Those interns have been they've invigorated our company in a way that's been really, really nice.
Good, good. Thank you so much for the shout out. And I would also like to know if uh, what kind of support you have received from the startup ecosystem from the region, as you have done your PhD and postdoc from Concordia. So part of the roots might be in the Quebec, Montreal, and you're based in New Brunswick. So how things are going and what kind of support you have received?
So we have, well, of course, like the financial support is there, but also from a research perspective, it's been extraordinary because when you're actively working with a university, whether it's Concordia or at UMB, because of our ties with especially the MBA program, it allows you to have that credibility, but also create colleagues very, very quickly. It's easy just to drop an email because you're one of them, and they're so willing to help. And so I've been really lucky with that type of support, whether it's in Quebec or in New Brunswick. It's nice to kind of have the support in that way.
Good, good, good to hear that. And in November, late November, you won or received an award from Mitacs. So would you like to share, which award you received and how was your experience with the team at Ottawa?
Yeah, absolutely. So I won the Mitacs Inclusive Innovator of the Year award. There's about 10, I think this year there was 11 winners, and I was the only one in that category. That was incredible. They gave me a call and said, "We're going to fly you up to Ottawa to celebrate you at the National Arts Center." And that was incredible. I got to meet the 10 other winners, and they are doing incredible work. Canada should be very, very proud of the of all the researchers and innovators that we are producing. And so thank you, Mitacs, because obviously the 11 of us were there because of Mitacs. And yeah, it was absolutely incredible. We took pictures all day, interviews all day. We actually, in the morning, we got to go to Parliament and actually talk about Mitacs and our work with a few MPs, which is very, very, I think, important. So we got to state our work, the gaps we're trying to fill, and also kind of difficulties that we're seeing, because that can help change, how we fund and finance various researchers.
Mhm.
So that felt extremely empowering, that Mitacs gave us the opportunity to be in front of several politicians like that. And in the evening, it was the award ceremony, which was very, very well organized. It was well done. And it was a really nice part was I'm still in touch with some of the winners now. I think, when you're at that position, you're so grateful and you're so humbled, and it's just been really nice to keep in contact. And now I'm going to be following their research and their innovation.
Yeah, it's 100%. It's great way to celebrate you guys what you guys are doing and supporting the research and entrepreneurship you are doing. So thank you so much for supporting our program also and using our program. And at last, I would like to ask if someone who's considering entrepreneurship path, what advice would you like to give if someone is, whether I go with entrepreneurship path or not, and they are in that dilemma? So few advice or one advice you would like to share.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel too qualified to give this advice. I'm only a few years into business. However, I typically always give the same answer, and it's to listen. What do people actually need? And I think that's so important because in this world, we have so many gaps that need to be filled. If you can find a gap that needs to be filled and you're passionate about that, your business is going to go a long way because people are going to want your product or your services. And so that's going to open doors and you're going to be fulfilled at the end of the day instead of saying, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur and trying to find something that people latch onto. If you can actually find a need and by listening to people, I think that's where you're going to have a really good start.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much, Anne.